Now, this is a simple note, which I think it is necessary to make, but one which comes to be of much greater significance and bearing as we delve into it. Namely, in cultural conditions and situations that are falsely given to adversariality, to competition, to an objectified subjugation rather than an essential expression of living reality, there is a profound inhibiting margin that has to be overcome in the patterns of how we treat our own development, our own realization, our own expression. Because when someone is realizing, reconciling, coming to the heart and harbor of communion, realization, comprehension, and truth, it is most natural that they're not doing this, let us say, for themselves, in some way to be a possessed, narrow, defined competency which they manipulate and hold and hone to some service. No, they do this for that which is their life, and that which is their life exceeds all narrow individual dimensions and groundings. Therefore, if someone finds something of depth and truth and subtlety, importance and presence and state, as they enrich, they're enriching to the universal in the presence and soul and essence of their life, and they share it freely and fluidly and naturally. And in the depth of such communing and cultivation, many are engaged and developed. But let us pretend that the subtlety of this essential communion, this living recollection, this depth and grace of fulfilled meaning, competency, and cause, as if the height of beauty and love and intellectual and moral dignity, in its first mouthed utterances, in its first subtlety of realization of conception, was not allowed the universal subtlety of immanence and presence, was not allowed this free and fluid, unthinking recollection that does not even associate to the accidents of its own nature and state, but tries to, we might say, harbor unto the true dimension of that truth. If instead of that subtlety, this was not used as a self-developed basis of cultivation and fulfillment and expression, but all expression, all development, all the intellectual and moral imperative was only formed in a defined, closed, narrow way for that individual to be judged, for that individual to be labeled and manipulated, and by some alien idea of competence and authority, governed and managed in the very service of that life from which he has been separated, or they, or he, or her, or any have been separated. Would that not be a most degrading condition of assumption and state? Would that not, rather than finding the lived essence of life and the subtlety and inclusion of fulfilled cultivation, present and essential in itself, would it not come to distrust all such measures and margins, as the way it relates to itself becomes shaped by violence, by competitive enforcement of accidents over the substance and soul? And hence, in such a way, it would be like one whose way of developing and esteeming the dignity and presence of meaning or love or the fulfilled measure of what life has in soul and essence and purpose could only articulate or form those things the way a soldier or a combatant in a gladiatorial arena could shape them. And therefore, the pattern of their own expression would be filled with tools of accidental, closed, defined determination that could not come unto the whole. And if someone had the pattern of their engagement with moral dignity, intellectual dignity, spiritual and comprehensive universal affinity, only subjugated by the shapings and utterances of violence, would they not be alienated from themselves and incapable of developing and engaging to the true meaning and merit of their truth? These are important things, because in a situation where some alien and alienated idea of authority and engagement rules over the shoulders and heads of men and all humankind, of each child and heart and soul, then what occurs is no one will live to the truth of that station. All will think that they have to put off and cast across the horizon the living and present imperative of fulfilled functioning in life, and hence life would be a life that would not live, that just echoed in the contradictions to its unfulfilled nascent spirit and soul of truth. And the only route, the only way to come unto health, fulfillment, being and soul and guidance would be to overcome those measures of false engagement, those measures of false expression, those illusions of false imperatives that are throttling the germ and soul of life. And so when we see enacted, whether it be in the Chandogya Upanishad, in the life of Augustine, how they never gained anything from defined set compulsion, but to imitate the vices and hypocrisy of their masters, to take a bold tone and forget the essence of what should take their whole attention and the truth. These situations, ever and again, sap, invert, and estrange, deny the dignity and subtlety of essence, of what morally, integrally, in the full spirit and soul and life has to be overcome in order to come to natural and fulfilled function and founding. Because the more and more people evade a direct and natural engagement with the truth that expresses itself fluidly and freely, and not under certain imagined condition of competition or adversarial engagement, the more they avoid the universal parameters, the more they're cut off from the truth of the truth, the essence of their own reality, the condition of fulfilling comprehension and rousing of margin and origin. And so almost before we come to a consideration of what something is, it is important to see that what is at center and source and soul of a Newton, a Socrates, every single human instance of fulfilled witness and life we can find founded, is the whole above all other things. Because in the words that have been repeated again and again in different ways, all that rouse to what should be roused, in the Katha Upanishad, it is said, he who sees a difference here between that which is eminence and presence, between that which is the heart and truth of the uncaused cause and the living spirit of full relation and reality, who creates a false division and projection, from death to death they go. Or even in Newton's phrase, which he took from the Emerald Tablet or the Hermetic documents, as above, so below, as in the eminence of fulfilled grounding and fruition of perfect functioning, so nature's birth to its full dimension of energy and condition and communion and cause is resident, unalienated, and perfect. And so if you see a difference, if you don't see the living whole, then you're becoming disengaged from the necessary margin. And if you don't trust the living whole, then you're becoming alienated from your own life. So this informs the simplest way that we engage with our life, and we see life being engaged with and managed all around us. For if you can't trust the whole, if you think that that which uses the leaf, uses the branch, uses the this, all the immediate functionings of an organism are separated, then you lose that which alone could live them and be the truth in the whole, in the unalienated competency. And so in the same way, this comes to the very origin of some of the things we were treating in, for instance, Heraclitus. He said there is this universal measure and margin, this profound generation of symmetry and alignment at this mutual all-living fire that is the expression of the divine mind that governs the course of all things through all things. And this universal reason and direct alignment, which he realizes as the condition of fulfilled functioning of our nature and of all living reality. People pretend they don't have a universal nature. They pretend that by treating the accidents of some form unto its closed measure, that they're going to come to that which delivers the fulfilled presence and fruition of the whole. But, he says, so there are some who carry about in their lives as if forgetting the truth of consciousness. And so all these intricacies and dimensions are necessary to realize in order to come to a more natural, fulfilling relation that can live to the depth and meaning and purpose that is given to what is not its narrow possession, its alienated self's contrivance, but to that which both gives the fulfilled occasion of functioning and realizes it to its unalienated truth of omnific presence, of balancing condition, of hyparxis, of condition and soul and margin.